So we are talking Buck Rogers, which is a late 70s, early 80s TV show. The actual pilot kind of feature-length episode was released theatrically in some countries, including here in the UK, and you could buy, and I had the VHS copy of it, and for a long time thought it was an actual film, until I realised obviously it was a series. The series ran for 2 seasons. Man behind it, of course, Glenn A. Larson, behind many TV shows, including Battlestar Galactica. After the success of the original Star Wars movie, there was this kind of glut of science fiction, space operas, both on TV and hitting the kind of cinemas. So this is kind of one of them, based on a kind of retooling of a 1920s pulp radio show, I believe it was, and maybe a comic strip. So the story of the pilot episode, at least, is of Buck Rogers, who is an astronaut that gets basically thrown into a kind of a deep sleep by some mysterious circumstances, awoken 500 or so years later into a kind of a future where there's this kind of like large kind of interplanetary trade by all these kind of different human-like creatures, basically. And Buck Rogers ultimately kind of sides with the Earth's forces and has a kind of like a kind of very sort of innuendo-filled relationship with his kind of Colonel Deering, Wilma Deering, played by the lovely Erin Gray, who I had a massive crush on back in the day. And every week there was kind of a variety of different threats. There was a kind of an overarching presence by the character, the kind of the bad guy, if you like, this sexy princess and her bodyguard Tiger Man. And both kind of sides think he may be a spy, and they're kind of unsure about what to kind of do with him. And he obviously has to prove his loyalty to the side that he feels is the greater, which of course it's Earth, and that's pretty much your pilot here. Watching this again, I forgot how kind of sexual innuendo laid this is. It very much reminds me of almost the early Bond movies in a way. The intro to the actual feature, the actual pilot episode, is very Bond-like. They could have changed it for the actual kind of series, but for this kind of feature-length episode, it does so much remind me of like a Moonraker style kind of Bond engines with all the kind of the girls and their kind of obviously sci-fi outfits. It's quite amusing. I've got to say, I kind of like Gerard as the main role here. He's just kind of got this roguish kind of charm. He is one of these characters that seemingly can do anything. I mean, in this kind of movie, basically, we're told he's an astronaut, but he seems to be an expert in kind of dogfighting, able to kind of, pilot ships that are essentially 500 years in the future with ease, besting any of the kind of the pilots they have on offer. So he's very much a kind of a Gary Sue, I guess you would say, pretty much good at everything, but nonetheless he's got a twinkle in his eye. However, it's interesting to note that this show ran for 2 seasons, and the second season was kind of very different in tone, and apparently this is a lot down to Gerard's wishes, because he didn't like the kind of the playfulness and the kind of all the sexual innuendos that kind of were in the first kind of series. But apparently he was a devout Christian and kind of wanted to take it into a more serious tone, and thus the second season has a markedly different tone to it. I think the thing that probably people will remember most about Buck Rogers is probably Tweaky, who is this kind of like stunted kind of C-3PO kind of robot, and his kind of his medallion kind of like computer sidekick as well, and of course Colonel Deering, Wilma Deering, played by the lovely Erin Gray. I've got to say, I don't think this is kind of is as classic as maybe some of the other kind of the Glenn A. Larson series. It's definitely fun. It has its kind of very kind of campy moments, and I've got to say the actual show veers from very kind of campy to some sort of quite good episodes. The pilot episode itself, the feature I think is fun because I think the villainess is so great in it. She's this kind of like seductress princess who has got a thing for Buck Rogers, and it's kind of the chemistry between those two are quite good. The actual effects here are very much used from stock footage for Battlestar Galactica. Props and stuff used from that series. For example, they launch out the kind of the tubes. It's pretty much the same as Battlestar Galactica, and apparently the starfighters that they used were actually original designs for the Colonial Vipers in the Battlestar Galactica series that weren't actually used. So it definitely has a very similar look to the original Galactica series. It's a fun movie, and the series that kind of like was after it seems like it's dropped in quality some degree in regards to the budgetary restraints here. There's a really great scene in this kind of first movie where he kind of goes out into the kind of the desolated kind of ruins of the Earth. Basically, there's all these kind of mutants and stuff. So that part gets kind of dark and reminds me of. That scene specifically reminds me of like Escape from New York, and that kind of almost like a John Carpenter kind of feel to it. So that bit I kind of quite liked. So overall, it's really dumb. I mean, it's no means a classic, I don't think, but it's definitely a fun movie, and the series was somewhat formulaic, I've got to be honest. But the actual first pilot episode, the fifth episode, was quite fun. Had some quite sort of fun characters, and it kind of sets up the series. And surprisingly, a very small intro in regards to how Buck Rogers got there. We don't see him on Earth at all, to be honest. It gets straight into it. I felt like maybe they should have built up his character a little bit more in kind of like contemporary times before kind of shooting him off into space. But I guess the kids would find it boring. But then again, the tone is so filled and laced with sexual innuendos, and it's hard to really kind of make out who this show was made for, in a way, because when I was watching it, they went straight over my head. So overall, I've got to say, it's a fun movie, but no means a classic, and it definitely is a product of its time. It has all those kind of like easy plot conveniences, cheesy kind of dialogue, and kind of TV level special effects. Nonetheless, I still think it's a fun movie. I think Galactica was better, I'll have to be honest, but I'll give this a 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.